Salutations.
Good evening. Okay.
Salutations.
Welcome. Okay. Welcome to our workshop. Clerk Pittman, would you please call the roll?
Yes, Councilman Fry,
Here.
Councilwoman Griffin,
She's here.
Councilwoman Burr,
Yeah.
Councilwoman Robinette,
Here.
Mayor Jones,
Here.
Councilwoman Lipka.
Excused.
And just, I wanted to give her a moment just in case she signed in with the telephone number and was not.
Okay.
And then Councilman Garrett.
Here.
Okay.
Okay, a quorum is present. Interim City Manager, you have the floor.
All right, thank you very much, Mayor and Council. We're here tonight to discuss the comprehensive plan, and I'm gonna do the really smart thing and pass it right off to Elliot, who will make the presentation along with our guests, Justin Carney and Miriam Keller. Elliot?
Thank you, sir. And we make the presentation, he means I'm going to pass it off to Justin and Miriam with just a very brief introduction to say that this is the culmination of, I think, 16 months worth of work and an incredible amount of community effort and steering committee effort. And we're very excited. And rather than go into any more accolades, I'm going to pass it on to Justin and Miriam from Development Strategies, who are our capable consultants. Take it away.
Great. Thank you, Elliot. Thank you, Mayor and Council members. I appreciate the opportunity tonight. As Elliot said, this is, about 16 months worth of effort. The unfortunate irony, or I'm not sure what the phrase is that I think we were actually going to be kicking off an adoption process that would have had this adopted in March, and we all know what happened. So we've been, derailed for a short term anyway by COVID. Derailed is a strong word. I think just delayed, certainly, but we're back and. We've been putting together the final touches on the document and getting and working with staff and initiating this public review process. So a couple of things before we start in on the presentation tonight. This is what I consider, and I hope all of you will as well. This is the start of that public review process. This is not kind of the end of that process. We've met once formally with a presentation with the Plan Commission. We met informally last week with a little bit of a Q&A, knowing all along that we were having this work session with you all. And you'll see at the end of the presentation, and I think there's going to be some discussion on kind of the public review and adoption process, that we have built in many more touch points with the public, with the Plan Commission and the City Council, and we'll go through that. So I'm prefacing it this way because we know, and Miriam and I, Elliot, the steering committee, we have a sizable, comprehensive plan, and it's got a lot of great, and it encapsulates the process that we've done, captures a lot of the great data and conversations that we've had, and really moves towards strategy. And we know that there's a lot there to digest. So I don't want anyone feeling like that this is the one opportunity, right? That's certainly not the case. Really, as I'm looking at it, it's the first opportunity over the next, let's say, 5 to 6 weeks that you would have to provide questions now, questions later, and we can take this where you want to take it. So I just wanted to kind of preface that a little bit. Miriam and I have put together a presentation to kind of walk through, and I don't expect it to take maybe 25, 30 minutes to kind of walk through But this is your time. This is your work session and your meeting. So we can save the questions for the end. If you've got a pressing question while we're walking through, happy to move that into a discussion phase. We can be very formal or informal with this. We do have a presentation, like I said, that we can use to guide the conversation. Octavia, if Miriam, are you able to share? And we can go ahead and have Miriam share the presentation. And while she's getting that queued up, I think there's 4 goals that I would like us to get out of tonight. One is just really reconnecting with all of you, reconnecting you to the plan and to this process that we've laid out over the next 5-6 weeks. We know that it's been a while and want to get that conversation started again. This presentation that we have is going to orient you to the plan, the process that we've done, a lot of, some of the content at a very high level. We can't do the deep dive on all of this in one meeting, but we definitely want to get you oriented to that and really how we're thinking about reviewing this reviewing the plan and going through the process. Third goal for tonight, I think, is answering any questions you might all have. They can be high-level questions, kind of given where we're at in the process. But certainly, if you've had a chance to look at anything, if you've got any detailed questions, we can deep dive this as much as you want. As I said, this is your time. And kind of the fourth piece, and I'm going to defer once we get there to Jeff and Elliot and Apollo if he's on, of just having this conversation around the adoption schedule, the review process. And I've got an exhibit that we can just have up on the screen and kind of guide us through that conversation. So that's what I'm really hoping to do tonight. I think with that, let's pause for just a second. And Madam Mayor, if there's anything you want to say or open it up before we start the presentation, I want to give you that opportunity, and then we'll jump right in.
No, you could go ahead.
Okay, great. Miriam, are you sharing? I'm not seeing.
I believe
Oh, there it is.
I am. Can everybody see it? Okay, great.
I can see it now, yeah. Great, so with that introduction, we'll just go ahead to the next slide, Miriam, and go into the next one as well. So as I said, we're going to talk a little bit about the process, the plan, how we want to review this and the schedule going forward. Just to kind of quickly reorient you, one of the things that, is always on the front of our mind, and we know this, but it's something that a lot of people, unless you're really constantly in a comp plan or in the planning world, don't always kind of know what is a comprehensive plan. What are we trying to do here? And really the comprehensive plan for the city is a policy guiding document. It's not a strategic plan. This is not designed to look at staffing and HR and budgets and department budgets and that sort of thing. It's not even really to look at the budget for the city and how you want to spend your money at this time. We don't get into the nitty-gritty of that in a comprehensive plan. And it's also not a zoning code. It is not meant to be, guiding land use as a zoning code might, with policies and regulations built into it. But what it is it's a policy guiding document that will actually inform all of those things for the city going forward. The comprehensive plan is a city vision. I think one of the things that we've been, really talking with the steering committee about over the last year and a half, talking to Elliot, Jeff, and the staff about is this is, a very much a community vision-driven plan. It's got goals and strategies around 6 focus areas that we'll talk about tonight. It's a guide for development. By that, I don't mean parcel by parcel development necessarily, but certainly a guide for how different districts and neighborhoods might develop and redevelop over time. And then really, as I kind of kicked off by saying, it's a policy guide, it's a policy document. The comprehensive plan, if it's used well, can guide decision-making by the city council, guide development and land use decision-making by the plan commission. Any of your other guiding bodies and advisory groups, certainly staff should be using this document to help guide their efforts within their departments and their programs. And so all of this will lead, hopefully the plan will leave a roadmap for all levels of decision making, at various levels in the city as we go forward. Go ahead, Miriam. So that's what it is. And, it's not, like I said, a strategic plan or a bunch of regulations. It's really a vision guiding and a strategic document that decision makers can tap into, that department heads and others can tap into at different times. I want to spend just a few minutes here talking about the process. We are a firm believer, and I think the city and the steering committee really embraced the notion that the process that we used to create the plan was, as important as the document that we leave you with. So we're going to spend a little bit of time talking about our engagement and outreach efforts. Go ahead, Miriam. Kind of broke it down into these four, areas. And we'll just walk through them, very, very quickly, very briefly to characterize a lot of the work that we've done. Building knowledge for us was really the kickoff. Sorry, I'm getting a little bit of feedback. If you are too, just let me know. So, building knowledge was really about the kickoff. For those of you that, joined our stakeholder groups, I think we had, anywhere from 8 to 12 focus group meetings on 2 days. We toured the city. Fran, Councilwoman Griffin joined us on that tour and spent a day, driving around and looking at different neighborhoods, commercial districts, a lot of the assets and some of the challenges that the city faced was really informed by those tours. And then the stakeholder groups were really, an instrumental part for us to understand and build our foundational knowledge for the city. Go ahead, Mary. The next phase for us was a trust building phase. And one of the things that we learned early on in that kickoff when we were having our focus group meetings, and really when we were talking to the steering committee and just understanding kind of the dynamics that were involved with the public and with the city of Ferguson at the point where we were starting this, it was clear to us. I don't even think we had community workshop number 1 where we had it in the schedule when we first kicked off this process, but we felt like it was very important for us to have this community workshop 1 to just listen, to understand what the experience of Ferguson is, to understand what the challenges have been, what the vision is for the residents of the future, for the residents of Ferguson and for the future of Ferguson. So we designed, I think it was a half a dozen stations and exercises to get input. And I believe many of you were at that meeting. And it was really for a time for us to ask questions, get people oriented in a comp plan, and then just listen about their experiences of Ferguson and what their desires were. The building trust phase was also a lot of outreach efforts. Our partners, and they're not with us tonight, but they certainly, I think will be going through some of this process. But our partners was Rise Community Development. Brian Hurd, Jess Henry, John Cruz, worked very well with us to help us with our outreach efforts and attending the farmers market, attending neighborhood association meetings, attending public events, the metro market. A variety of things to try and just spread the word of the comprehensive plan and get people aware of what was going on, get some high-level feedback from people, again, just in sort of a listening mode. And something that you're going to see here, building knowledge, building trust, and as we move through engagement, you're going to see the steering committee come up every single time, and I think it was really important and critical to highlight their efforts at every phase of engagement. We'll talk a little bit more about the steering committee, but it's very intentional that they are here throughout the process. Go ahead, next slide. Just a couple of examples. One of the questions we asked at that first neighborhood workshop, in one word, how would you describe the Ferguson you would like to see in 2040, so 20 years from now? And then we got, a lot of Post-it notes that you saw there and kind of created this word cloud as a great way to kind of visualize what we heard. United, togetherness, equity, innovative, healthy, awesome. You know, these were a lot of positive words. This is what people wanted to see their communities, you know, in the next 20 years. And, you know, that sentiment, that really positive, future-looking notion, I think carried through all of our engagement and hopefully is reflected in the plan. Go ahead, Miriam. The next phase for us was really building a shared understanding. One of the tenets that we created when we were engaging our when we were creating our engagement plan and thinking through how we wanted this process to go was this theme of really marrying data with experience. There is a wealth of data out there that we can map, we can graph, we can chart, we can talk about that really gives us a great understanding from that data perspective of what's going on. But if we don't understand it from a lived experience, you know, it sort of just becomes kind of static data, you know, and blending those two pieces together, the data with the experience, was really the emphasis of community workshop number 2. You can see on the slide here some of the pictures. A lot of engagement around data boards that you're going to see more of as we get into the focus areas. A lot of people, you know, us explaining what some of the data was and what it was telling us, and having people, yes, validate that, or in some instances say, you know what, the data is telling a slightly different story than what my experience is, and this is what I experience, this is what I see, and really fleshing that out for us. We also did a community survey, a community aspirations survey, and you're going to see some of those results as we move through the presentation tonight. And again, the steering committee really helping us, you know, bridge when, you know, that data, and we were explaining the data, and is this message clear? No, we need to talk about it in different ways. So we would do that, and then we heard the response from the community, and then we'd say, what exactly do you think they were trying to say here, and help us bridge that. Was really, you know, some great conversations that we had with the steering committee after the second workshop. Oh, here's just, you know, this is our, I think the kind of the foundational survey questions. We asked respondents to rank these areas, or city services areas, not city services, but these areas that the comprehensive plan was going to touch on. We said, you know, what are your top 5 issues? And then how successful or not successful, or more or less successful, is the city in addressing those issues? You can see here, this is ranked by, you know, the number of times that each one of these was in the top 5. No surprise. Housing and neighborhoods, you know, topped the list. Business development, city services, youth programs, and jobs round out the top 5. You can also see the dotted, that's the dark bars, the dotted lines represent the other question of how successful is the city, you know, in addressing some of these challenges. And you can see the biggest issue of housing and neighborhoods had the largest challenge of the city, just having the greatest number of challenges trying to meet those needs. You know, conversely, when you will look down at the bottom, you know, recreation programs, parks and environment, I think it is a great testament to the city, that, you know, I don't want to say here that it's not, that these, just because they're lower on the ranking side, that they're not as important. They're very important, and I think it's also shown here that the residents that filled out our survey see that the city is taking strides in parks and environment, recreation programs, energy efficiency and sustainability efforts, even business development, that the city is, you know, taking, you know, is more successful in taking great strides in meeting those challenges. And so this was very, I think, kind of a very telling one to 2 question comparison that we have here. Go ahead, Mary. And then finally, you know, we were building that shared understanding, and then through that shared understanding, really starting to get at how do we want to implement this plan? How do we want to move the needle on these important issues? How do we want to leverage the assets of the city to meet the challenges? If you recall, I think we've met a couple of times where and if you attended the public meetings, you know that assets and challenges conversation is carried throughout the plan and was carried throughout our engagement process. And so the third community workshop was really getting at what is it that we can try to set up, what sort of strategies and tactics can we put into the plan to move the needle on a lot of these issues. And again, with the steering committee, I believe we had 2, maybe even 3 work sessions with the steering committee after that community workshop, really trying to get at the strategies that were coming out of that. And so that was our process. As I said, you know, the steering committee was really for us foundational in helping us move through this planning process. You can see them here, some business leaders, some plan commission and city council members. Their voice really helped us have our voice through the engagement, really gave us some context to the experience and the input that we were receiving. I don't know how many times, you know, messaging was a big deal, and we can talk about, you know, we can talk about housing affordability or job creation or workforce development in ways that can kind of get wonky sometimes. That's what planners do. But helping us, you know, we would talk about it, and then they'd help us kind of put that real, you know, Ferguson real world messaging to that, so that we were really communicating clearly with the community. And then, as I said, kind of getting to the end, helping us refine this vision and helping refine the strategy. So thank you again to the steering committee members that are here tonight. And I think it's a real testament, like I said, to their commitment to this entire process. So I think with that's the process we had. Miriam's going to kind of kick us off in talking about the focus areas a little bit. And then we're just going to do these at a really high level, and that may lead to some questions at the end, but we want to, you know, definitely give some time to that discussion, and we'll have some time for the deep dive later. Go ahead, Miriam.
Great. Yeah. So, you know, like Justin said, we organized the document itself, as well as a lot of the discussion throughout the process, into these 6 high-level focus areas or issue areas. You can see them here: housing and neighborhoods, transportation and mobility, development, place, environment and well-being, jobs and the economy. You know, really in an effort to have a, you know, comprehensive, holistic conversation about the things that impact quality of life today and will impact quality of life in the future in Ferguson. What this diagram here is meant to illustrate is that all of this is connected, of course. All of these things really play off of one another. Housing and neighborhoods, of course, is really tied to place and the character of a neighborhood and commercial corridors. Environment and well-being, you know, parks and other open spaces have a very direct bearing on place. Jobs in the economy and transportation are, you know, really hard to fully tease apart, and how they function in somebody's lives or in any community. And so even though we've separated these for the kind of purpose of discussion and getting into some of the detailed issues in the plan document itself, you know, here in this diagram and throughout, you'll see how we try to think about these issues in a holistic way and how they impact one another and support one another. So Justin and I are going to walk through each one at a time. And what we've done here is kind of pull apart some of the pieces of the document in a way to orient you to the things in the document. It's, like Justin said, quite a thing to work through and review, and this is really just the beginning of that review process. And so what we have this set up to do is provide that orientation to how the document works and deep diving some of these different issues. So I'll start with housing and neighborhoods. In every chapter and every issue area, we start by looking at kind of what is the context, what's going on today, looking at some of the data and sort of place-specific issues with a map, as well as some other types of data. And in particular, the data and other kind of themes that we heard in conversation with the community, really thinking about how data and experience work together to inform what issues this plan needs to address. So here at a high level are some of the major assets and major challenges that came out of discussion and out of the data and analysis. Of course, affordability, city-owned property as a major asset. Ferguson's network of neighborhood associations, 13, I believe, surveying neighborhoods all across the city. That's just a really fantastic asset. But several challenges as well. Of course, vacancy, property condition in some areas. Eviction has been a chronic challenge in Ferguson and communities across the country, and how that contributes to housing insecurity, as well as is reflective of it. And as everybody knows, has the potential to sort of reach a real crisis point as a result of the kind of economic fallout of the COVID crisis. So a high-level summary of assets and challenges, and these are themes that we try to recognize both sides of this coin, right, in every chapter of the plan. In each chapter, we also highlight some of the key survey data. So one of the questions we asked on that community aspirations survey is, what from a resident perspective are Ferguson's greatest housing challenges today? And you can see maintenance and condition really toward the top of the list. Challenges that renters face working with landlords, vacancy, in some cases property values, and how that can be a barrier to neighborhood investment, and so on. And this conversation, the survey data, the analysis, the community conversations, we pulled all together to kind of lay out here in Housing and Neighborhoods, but in each chapter in the plan document, some high-level themes under which we organize the strategies that I'll kind of present here at a high level in a minute. So in Housing and Neighborhoods, these were the 4 themes: neighborhood stability and growth, resident housing stability, mixed income infill and development, and community development capacity. What are the entities, the resources, the groups and processes that need to be in place to make progress in some of these other areas, thinking about home ownership and property maintenance, a vision for development that really places value on economic diversity and diversity in the community, and then also supporting renters and their housing stability alongside all of these other strategies. In several of the chapters, we've provided also a framework map, we call these, which offer a way to think about how to focus some of the strategies that could have a kind of place-based focus. And so here in the Housing and Neighborhood section, the framework map calls out neighborhood stabilization focus areas, which are places where the community would focus efforts like code enforcement, which of course would maintain a citywide focus, but calling out some of the places where an added level or heightened level of focus would be most responsive to some of the things that we see in the data, the trends, and also what we heard through community conversation. And then neighborhood reinvestment areas here in the green would be areas that receive that same type of sort of ongoing support, as well as could benefit from a deeper, more extended, small area planning process, or a process that involves the community in thinking about a long-term vision for that area. What are the types of infill development or housing stabilization activities that residents would like to see, and what is a holistic vision, and who are all of the parties that need to be at the table to kind of continue the positive work that's happening, for example, in Southeast Ferguson, and what pieces would need to be in place to really embrace a positive envision for development without displacement. And so a couple of areas with a deeper level of focus for some of the strategies outlined in this plan chapter, and then some of these other places as well, sort of identifying the historic buildings and historic district as an asset, and how to apply the strategies there.
Yeah, Mary, if you want to go back for just a second before I jump into transportation, I think this is just a good example where when you look at the plan document, you know, one of the things that we strived to do was, yes, this is a citywide comprehensive plan, and there are a lot of, you know, there are a lot of issues and data points and just general strategies that could be citywide strategies or actions. Maybe some of it, a lot of it, you're probably already doing, but we're just reinforcing it. Or, you know, talking about neighborhood associations and neighborhood watch that could be citywide and those kinds of things. But from a strategic, you know, effort of just saying, okay, we know that the city has limited resources and needs to target those resources in a maximum, you know, to maximize, again, kind of moving the needle on any of these focus areas. That's what we're trying to do with these framework maps, is to say, yes, there are things that are going to happen citywide. There's attention that should be given citywide in this instance for housing and neighborhoods, but with limited resources and really targeting certain challenges, this is where we think those ought to be based on the data and the conversations. And I think that's what we're trying to do with these framework maps. So moving on to transportation very quickly, we're looking at, you know, the data here really highlighted several key issues that we took to the community, and again, very much validated. The lack of connectivity, especially east-west connectivity across the city, was very challenging. And you know, especially when you think about, as you see on the map here, the dark gray corner on that map, this is a map that was showing the percentage of households without cars. And so when you start looking at a segment of your city that has a high percentage of households that don't have access to an automobile, a private automobile, you're talking about needing to provide access by transit, by biking, by walking. And so then when you're talking about connectivity issues, that gets heightened and exacerbated by the fact that some of your, that a large segment of a portion of your community doesn't have access to a private vehicle. Some of the other data points here this map is showing is the transit routes, and the fact that Metro has increased the frequency of 2 of the transit routes that directly impact the city of Ferguson. The circles here are also representing pedestrian and bicycle accidents with vehicles. And so so safety of pedestrians, especially around transit stops and bus stops, was another key issue that came up. Go ahead, Miriam. You know, when you're looking at the assets and the challenges, you know, a lot of people looked at our data maps for transportation and a lot of nodding heads. Yes, I have to take I have to take a bus, and it's very difficult to get, you know, it takes a long time to get to my job, or it's very difficult to get to a lot of jobs. I'm limited in the kind of jobs that I could get access to. Safety at those transit stops, those issues came up quite a bit. Talked about, you know, assets. Metro increasing the frequency of 2 of the lines that impact Ferguson, having the North County Transit Center up north, having walkable areas of the city were very much seen as assets. And then we've talked a little bit about, you know, what some of the challenges are. I want to mention street maintenance. It was something, go ahead, Miriam, that came up during the neighborhood survey piece. And, you know, it's interesting because when you just ask a survey, and some people, a lot of people perhaps, were filling out the survey without necessarily engaging with our data boards or coming to the public meeting. What do we all think about when we're, you know, when we think about transportation? It's the curbs out in front of us. It's the sidewalks out in front of us. It's the lack of sidewalks out in front of us. Those kinds of issues, really close to home issues, kind of tipped at the top of our community survey here. But when we were having the conversations, the bigger connectivity issues were really coming up. Go ahead. So, you know, transportation is not something that stops at your city borders. We all know that. So, you know, there's regional connectivity that's that's, you know, having great access to county roads, to the interstate system, to, you know, nearby Lambert Airport. You know, there's a lot of regional connectivity, the greenways, and having the Maylene Greenway come through. You know, so there's a lot of conversation around that. And then obviously the local connectivity. How do I feel safe in my neighborhood walking, safe getting on a bus? How do I access the neighborhood and the rest of the city if I don't have a car? Those kind of local connectivity issues were the two themes that really framed the transportation discussion. The framework map here is really pulling together some of these local assets and challenges, and really emphasizing the orange dots, emphasizing areas where you know, maybe spending some money investing in pedestrian infrastructure would be a great benefit. Chambers Road, the Maylene Greenway are the teal, you know, the teal arrow dotted lines of ways to promote interconnectivity between the city. And then there was a vision, kind of a future looking, you know, having a high frequency transit route along West Florissant is great, but what if it could be more? There's been regional discussions for years about possibly bringing Metrolink into this area, but if it's not Metrolink, maybe it's bus rapid transit, something to really enhance the transit experience of Ferguson and this part of North County. And that's what's being conveyed here. Jobs and economy, again, this one's really you know, a challenging one because a lot of the conversation centered around you know, workforce development that the city doesn't directly do, but it can actually act as a partner to regional workforce development issues, and getting Ferguson residents trained and educated and ready to have high quality paying jobs. And that was a lot of the conversation, and the city's gonna, you know, can really take a partnership role in that with a lot of regional effort. Some of the more local economic development and jobs pieces of this was the number of small businesses and the growth in small businesses in the city is fantastic and is an asset that needs to grow. And then there are large employers that bring thousands of workforce, you know, thousands of employees to the city on a daily basis. How can that, you know, how can the city leverage those assets, small business and large business within its borders, to really make Ferguson an economic and job destination? Go ahead, Miriam. There's your assets and challenges again. Again, kind of the proximity to UMSL, to North Park from an economic development standpoint, the St. Louis Community College, small business, the existence of small business, the recent growth in small businesses, the desire to grow African-American owned small businesses was very much a conversation around assets. You can see challenges here. Really, one of the biggest economic challenges is a transportation challenge. If a large portion of your community is reliant on transit, the access to jobs gets cut by 2/3 from a regional job connectivity perspective. And so how do you build you know, greater connectivity? Some of that is bringing those jobs closer and into Ferguson, and some of it's improving the transportation access out. The framework map here, oh, I'm sorry, yeah. So again, this is the survey result, and you can see skills training, educational attainment, the availability of jobs. You know, there is some, you know, access to jobs, but they aren't well-paying jobs, and too few jobs in Ferguson. So how can the city bridge that mismatch and bring, you know, make it so that there are more jobs here for local, you know, for Ferguson residents to have in a local, you know, within the city. The framework map is really, I want to jump to the framework map. There is no framework map with the economy. I'm sorry. The themes that jumped out of this are, you can see right here. It's leveraging that small business and that startup environment that's focused on downtown, that's focused on West Florissant. How do you cultivate that with public and nonprofit investment like the Urban League, like the Boys and Girls Club Empowerment Center? How do you bridge that and help that build your small businesses up? How do you leverage the fact that you've got a lot of large employers in the city bringing thousands of people, you know, to the city on a daily basis? And then how can the city work with its workforce development partners like the Economic Partnership and others around the region to increase the effectiveness of Ferguson's workforce and link them to better high-paying jobs. And like I said, no focus map on this one. Keep jumping to that, but Miriam, you want to take it here?
Yeah, sure. So the next theme is environment and well-being, and I have an eye on the clock here, so I'll move through this one and the final two as well, kind of at a pretty high level to make sure we have time enough to answer your questions. So environment and well-being, you can see some of the analysis here. We really, with the knowledge in mind that the community, thinks that Ferguson's parks and open spaces are an incredible asset. What we're interested in is what is the access to those parks and open spaces, and kind of looking at where walkable access is and is not. You can see that not all parts of the community can walk, that quarter-mile distance to a park as it stands today. A lot of assets, amenities in different parks, sort of ongoing investment, Mailing Creek Greenway as something that has a lot of potential, some challenges, flooding and erosion, this access issue, some parks needing different or updated amenities, and then the issue of fresh food and health came out of some early conversation, and so we kind of expanded this theme to include conversations about health and well-being, not just parks and open space. And so I think you'll see some of that when we get to the strategic themes. We asked what would most improve your experience of parks and open space in Ferguson. Safety and security, lighting, maintenance, really topping the list. We also had a youth survey and asked, have there been any barriers that have prevented you from taking part in recreational opportunities or after school activities? And you can see kind of the top of the list, several young people experiencing transportation as a major barrier, in addition to cost and money of participating in different programs. You can see the strategic themes here. Of course, the Parks and Open Space Network as one where there are several strategies in the plan. Healthy living and recreation, including health and investing in people that help, or in activities that help people invest in their own health, food and other preventative care. And then energy efficiency and resource management, also an interest in community conversation. Looking at the framework map, you'll see in the plan that in addition to thinking about sort of walkability around and into the existing parks, calling out places where there's not that walkable access today, and in many cases where there's a lot of vacant land that could potentially become quality open space of some kind. So you'll see that on the framework map here. Development focused especially on the commercial areas in Ferguson, looking at kind of the two, what we're characterizing as walkable commercial areas, and understanding the different sort of assets and potentials in these two parts of the city, and overall understanding the retail environment. Ferguson having a lot of retail space in a region with a lot of retail space, and so what does that mean for land use into the more distant future? A bit of a challenge. I'm thinking about assets and challenges here as it pertains to development. Great momentum downtown, as well as along West Florissant and Southeast Ferguson. Some challenges, the current retail supply really exceeds the local demand for retail as it exists today. So, what does that suggest about the uses and types of development to on the one hand, complement and really make attractive retail, so the retail in Ferguson is competitive, and on the other hand, maybe retail is not the only type of development that can contribute to these corridors. some of the services that survey respondents were most excited to see, improved options for shopping and retail, and also arts and entertainment, and actually a pretty good deal of community discussion about the arts community and also the potential of arts to make Ferguson potentially a real destination and feature the vibrant arts community in Ferguson in something like an arts district in part of downtown or somewhere else in the community. The strategic themes here, thinking of course about commercial corridors, but also business attraction into space in Ferguson, and awareness and involvement around development processes. That was something that a priority that came out of community conversation, just wanting to expand awareness of and knowledge about development opportunities and development decisions that are being made in the community. And the framework map here, thinking about the places really to emphasize here downtown and then in this West Florissant district, walkability and a mixed use environment, and then other places around that to emphasize as commercial, but maybe not necessarily that really active ground floor retail space, and other commercial areas as well as industrial in the community. This is our last issue area, place. And what we did was we kind of took a look at all of the things that contribute to place. And we, as a firm, define it kind of with these 6 different principles. I'll show you an example of one of them, which is, what are the anchors, or what are the uses in a community that draw people in and could potentially invite them to stay and explore other parts of the community. So thinking really broadly about place, what makes Ferguson just a good place to be, where it feels great to be there, people want to stay, people want to visit, people feel comfortable and want to live in the community. Assets and strengths, of course, walkable character downtown, public arts as an exciting thing and kind of a potentially growing part of Ferguson's identity. Some of the challenges, it's really auto-oriented character in other commercial corridors makes it a more difficult place for people to spend time, especially if they are not arriving in a personal automobile, right? People walking or using transit. So thinking on both sides of the coin there. And then a survey question about, actually in this case, community improvement activities that people would like to see more of. What would be the changes or community efforts that people would be most excited to see that could potentially kind of celebrate Ferguson as a place and make it a more attractive, welcoming place even than it is today. Beautification and cleanup and home repair topping the list there. The strategic themes here, quality and comfort, and then identity and cohesion. So, the second theme is really thinking about arts and kind of the character of a place, and then quality of comfort about what are the spaces and types of development and types of buildings and infrastructure that create human scale places where people want to spend time. And so oh yeah, go ahead, Justin.
Yeah, no, I just want to, so thank you, Miriam. I think that's kind of the end of it. What we've done here is we've started to do a composite. This is an overlay of the housing, the transportation, the parks, and the place and development pieces. And so I think this is something that I don't want to spend a lot of time on right now. We can spend a lot more time on this composite map and how this could really help, I think, decision makers and advisory boards and staff really start to see the intersection of transportation and jobs and development and environment and leveraging different resources and different investments that the city can make going forward. We've created this composite map. We're going to build out a little bit of what we're calling right now sort of a user's guide on how to understand and how to maybe think about this, whether you're setting policy, passing legislation, providing, development recommendations, or putting together a program, as a department head, thinking through some of that. I know that go ahead, Miriam. I know that we've thrown a lot at you. Go ahead. And so, it's, there's a lot here to digest, and I want to come back to this schedule. I think, Miriam, do I have the, so we'll get back to the schedule for just a second. When you're looking at the plan, this is kind of the level of input and feedback that we'd like to hear from you. Is anything missing? We've had a lot of conversations. We had very engaged steering committee, but that doesn't mean we didn't miss something as we were translating that into the planning document. We've already heard from the Plan Commission and from staff, a greater emphasis on, here or there, and maybe a different idea that didn't come out but could be emphasized in a different way. Or perhaps we just mischaracterized something, or we didn't quite get it right. I think this is, if you have these three questions in front of you while you're working through the plan document, answering these and giving us this level of feedback will be the most impactful level of feedback that we can get from you. Copy edits, grammatical notes, I would just say, you can certainly share them offline with us, but probably 9.5 times out of 10, we've already caught it, and it's probably changed in a different version that you just haven't seen yet, but we're happy to hear them. But really, I think for us, if you answer these three questions for each of the focus areas, I think we'll be feeling really good. I know we're running up on time and you need to have a regular meeting. If we can go back to the schedule, and then I want to throw this one to, Jeff or Elliot or Apollo. Is now the time we want to have this conversation, or is there a moment at the regular meeting where this is coming up?
I think this is Apollo. I think now is probably a good time to have the conversation, if you guys are okay with that. Jeff, did you have a problem with that?
No, sir. Go right ahead.
Okay. I know Councilwoman Griffin, wanted to sort of kind of weigh in on our, the city's process for approving the plan. Make a long story short, there's, some conflicting language at the statutory level as well as the ordinance level, which caused me to advise Elliot and the city to make sure that the council was on board with the, the plan moving forward for adopting the comprehensive plan. So I'll let Councilwoman Griffin, you sort of weigh in here, and I'll add what I need to add.
Okay, so it was brought to our attention at the Planning Commission meeting that there are some state statutes that discuss the process for moving forward with a plan, and that the Planning Commission would vote. We as a city also have an ordinance that talks about that process as well. And I think the conflict, because to me it just made sense, the ordinance, and I can actually bring up and share with everybody at some point the wordage. I know it's out there specifically, but the ordinance basically said that the city council, the process, it spelled out the same process that we do any other time stuff goes in front of the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission looks at it, they vote they send their recommendation to us, and then we as the council vote on it. And so that ordinance just kind of spelled that wordage out. And so there was a question specifically in regards to would that be a conflict, you know, who votes for it and who doesn't. And my thought process was, when we first created the ordinance within the city, it wasn't a conflict with the state statute. Just like, you know, the state can have certain requirements on a state level, and then we can fine tune it, you know, according to what we see fit on a city level. I feel like that ordinance was designed originally with that same process in nature, which is why it wasn't a conflict with the state statute originally. And so that part, I did not see that there was anything that we would do differently than what we normally do, is just have the planning commission take a look at it, make their votes, send their information to us as a city, and then as a city council, then we do the final process. The question is, you know, talking specifically about the public hearing, who is it that calls for the public hearing? With the public hearing, within the state statute, the wordage says that the planning commission shall call for the public hearing. And so, you know, there was a concern that, you know, we didn't want council to feel like those powers were taken away. We definitely wanted to be able to explain both the state statute, and I know Apollo can probably do a much better job on that than I can. The state statute, so that, you know, we as a council would be aware of ahead of time, you know, what the state is calling for and how, you know, that process would look with us, not just approving, but also, you know, going through the whole public hearing portion of it.
Yeah. So long story short, to the council, my recommendation is going to be that we allow the planning commission to, you know, hold the public hearing, take a vote on, you know, adoption of the city comprehensive plan, and then obviously the council will then, you know, per our ordinance, the council will then vote to accept that recommendation from the you know, from the planning commission. And we just wanted to make sure that the council was okay with that in particular, because neither Elliot nor I were here with the city when the last comprehensive plan was passed. And we just wanted to make sure we didn't advise the planning commission in a way that was inconsistent with the way things have been done. But what I've heard from members of the planning commission is that, you know, this is the way it has been done. They would vote, they would hold the public hearing, and then the council would vote to approve that recommendation. So as long as the council is okay with that, you know, we'll go back, and that'll be our advice in terms of what the process is for adopting the comprehensive plan.
And then I'll just add to that the schedule that you see on the screen is, I believe, well, no, I know it is. It's different than what you had been given previously, because as these conversations have evolved, getting to tonight's meeting, I think what we're reflecting is what the city councilor's recommendation would be, and I can walk through what that looks like on this calendar, but it is slightly different than what you might have received prior to tonight's meeting.
Okay. And we're not asking, you know, for a vote or anything like that. Just
right.
You know, because at the end of the day, it's just we just wanted to, you know, again, out of an abundance of caution, to make sure the council understood that process and was okay with it, given the, you know, sort of the gray language in the statute versus the ordinance and that kind of thing. But hearing no objections from the council.
Apollo, this is Tony Burrow.
Yeah.
I have an objection, and I wanted to tell Mr. Carney and his partner that did a great job. What I'm looking for is that this is a lot of information to digest in 1 hour's time. Mm-hmm. And I think that what is called for before the Planning Commission sends us something to look at, and then we rush it through and just get it done, I'd like to take a look at this myself And I don't know how many council members would want to do that. I'd like to look at it and look at this plan a little deeper than what we just got. It's this overview just now. That's my objection. I think we need some time to digest it. This is really important, and an hour's overview. And no disrespect to you, Mr. Carney. It's just that I think that it needs to be a deeper dive than what we have right here.
No, absolutely. And if I may respond to that, I
Yes, sir.
completely agree. I completely agree. So if you look on the screen here, let me give you a couple of things. What I think Mr. Carey is saying is tonight we just need to have kind of an agreement from the council that yes, the Plan Commission will hold the public hearing. And I do believe that the city council, the way I've put this schedule together and the way we've talked about it with staff, is that there will be a formal adoption of a resolution by the
Right.
council. But that won't happen until December. So between October 13th tonight and December 8th, there is going to be a lot of opportunity for the council, the council, the Plan Commission, and the public to review this document. So if I could just quickly walk through this, what you see is tonight's council work session. If we get the council to say, yes, this works, the Plan Commission will hold the public hearing and make the final, sort of adopt the plan, but then the city council will adopt a resolution supporting the plan. If we get that go ahead, then what's going to happen is next Tuesday will be the public notice for the public hearing. That'll be October 20th.
Mr. Carney, Mr.
Yeah.
Carney, excuse me. I know exactly what you're doing. Please don't get me, I just don't want you to think that I'm confused, because I'm not. And
No.
I know exactly what question that you're asking for. I know
Mhm.
what Councilwoman Griffin is looking for, and I know exactly what what the attorney has told us.
Mhm.
With all of that information, I'm still saying your calendar would probably have to be changed, because that's not, as a council member, I want to see a deeper dive than this. It may take me 3 or 4 days to digest it, but I'm not willing to say tonight that, yes, we're going to do it the way you just laid out in this plan. That's just what I'm saying. If there's another council member that wants to say what they want, then I think that there needs to be a deeper dive, another week, push it out,
Well,
give us an opportunity to see if that's what we want to give the planning commission, the planning folks to take a look.
So I was going to walk through I was going to show you, kind of highlight the opportunity. So we can have another work session at your November 10th meeting, and we can do a deep dive then. There are other, I guess what I was kind of going to outline, Councilwoman, is that I don't think tonight you're approving the plan at all. But I think there are several opportunities where I can come back and have those conversations that I think you want to have in that deep dive with you.
Right, I'm not looking to approve the plan. The layout that you have here, I'm not trying to approve the plan tonight. Even with what you've shown, this piece of information could very well tell us, if we looked at it, could very well tell us if the process that you are talking about for the planning folks is what we really want to do. That's what you're looking for. That's what I would need more time to do. You want to move to November. I understand the importance of getting this done before December. I really do. But I think that in order for me to say yes, that's a great plan, I'd have to look at it myself and take a minute to just go back. And if I had a question at this point right here, I am not writing down the questions. I was just paying strict attention to what you were telling us. And through what you were telling us, I knew I had some questions that I wanted to mull over, if you will. Any other council member?
I actually do. And I think, and Justin, tell me I'm saying, if I'm saying anything wrong. Literally what you need to know from us at this point. I think when we brought the state statute and the city ordinance up, it kind of complicated things a bit. To me, the wordage, and I would I would lean to Apollo to send it to council as well, both the state statutes as well as the city ordinance, so that everybody can have an opportunity to read that. But it actually says on the state statute that the planning commission approves the comprehensive plan. Our ordinance doesn't exclude the planning commission. What our ordinance does is just like how our system is set up any other time that we as a council receive something from the planning commission. The planning commission looks at it, they approve it, they send their recommendation to us, and then we as a council vote on it to put it in place. So Justin, you weren't suggesting that the timeline is what we were talking about, correct?
I guess there's a couple of ways I would respond to that. One is, and Mr. Carey, please jump in, because I'm not an attorney, but I've lived land use right for years. But what I think you've got it exactly right, Fran. That I think there is a whole lot of there are several weeks between today and December 8th that the city council will have to review and comment and have deep dives and Q&A with me if we want to have another work session. I also don't know, because of the way you've got it structured, why the Plan Commission couldn't perhaps get to an adoption on November 18th and say, yeah, we like the plan, and then move forward in December 8th and have an element for some reason that might need to be revised or worked through or whatever from the city council's perspective. And maybe you don't adopt a supporting resolution on the 8th because there's more work that you think might need to be done. I suppose that's possible. I think the only thing here is, if you agree that the public hearing is held by the Plan Commission, if we wanted to keep the process moving forward, knowing that we're heading into the holidays, we just sort of need everyone nodding their heads so that we can get that public notice out and get the public hearing on the calendar.
Yeah.
So I don't know. So it doesn't say a whole lot about, whether or not we have another work session with council or anything like that. It's just, it's sort of a critical path just for the public hearing piece. And
Mr. Carney, this is Tony again.
Yeah, Tony.
I got a note earlier today, and it did say something about only 2 meetings, one in November and one in December, so that makes a difference. I just got that this evening. So I see what you're saying. We're looking at a time crunch, and that's what I think Fran was asking about the time. Is that correct, Fran? That's what you were asking about, the time crunch?
Yes.
Right. And
So,
so what
okay. So
no, I'm sorry.
No problem. Attorney Carey, in your suggestion,
yes, ma'am.
in your suggestion, the time crunch and looking at the, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Absolutely, Councilwoman Burrow. I think my recommendation is that we go ahead and stick with the schedule that Justin has put there. And I think if we go ahead and have Justin maybe schedule another work session, maybe on the 20th of October, so that, if that works for them, I don't know. That's just a sort of a date that I think, could possibly work for everybody. That's a week from today. But to still maybe go ahead with the public hearing piece and the schedule the way it's been recommended thus far, given the fact that we have that time crunch, and we, like you said, Councilwoman Burrow, you were just notified of that recently here.
Yeah, just this evening. And
right.
I tell you what, if there were another, I think another work session would probably work, because I do believe that we need to take a look at this. And so let me ask you, Mr. Cornyn, is that possible for another work session between the time frame that we have, say, in another week from now?
So I was thinking, and the reason November 10th is highlighted is because it's your next regular meeting. And I was going to just suggest that we could have that work session prior to your next regularly scheduled meeting in November. If you are interested, if you're interested in having a special meeting, then I would just need to kind of look at the calendar
Okay.
and look at the 20th or the 27th if you wanted to do something special. I didn't want to put on there a special meeting for you all and be it all
Exactly. I get it.
presumptuous. So,
I get it. You're exactly right. Yes, but we have other business that we need to take care of before the end of the year too. With just one meeting per month, then I would think it would be more feasible and advantageous as well to do this in October, like Attorney Kennedy has suggested.
yeah, that sounds good. And
I have a question. What's the basic need you need from us tonight as the board members? Approval? We're going back and forth like usual, and it's getting very old. You had over a week to look at this stuff. It's been on our calendar, been emailed to us. If we didn't look at it then, I'm sorry, I just can't help you. We gotta move on.
Byron, I'm respecting what you're saying, and I hope you can do the same for me. I want to look at it again. And I think everybody else should be looking at it as well. And if you looked at it in this week, good for you.
So to answer, I think what we were looking for, Councilman Fry, was we've gotten. I think we're okay. I think we're going to build in another, some additional time for the council to look at this again. And I think the current schedule that we have moving forward, given the time crunch, I think, we should, the recommendation is to sort of kind of stick with that schedule, at least for the public hearing piece. Schedule, as Councilwoman Burrow said, schedule another time for you guys to look at it prior to that, and then sort of, make sure we get this done before the end of the year.
So, quick question for Octavia. Do we not have a second meeting in October?
We do have a second meeting in October.
Okay. Okay. So that's what I thought. I mean, why couldn't we have another meeting right before that one? I guess that's on the 27th. Yeah.
Yeah, Councilwoman, that if I may, that was actually going to be the date I recommend. That would give you 2 weeks, and that rather than 1 week for the council to digest that. I'm sorry, I completely had a brain cramp that you were meeting again on the 27th. I think the 27th works well for my schedule, and if it would work for you, we could definitely schedule something. That could definitely work.
Okay, let me just do a quick shout out. Thank you so much, Mr. Kearney. Quick shout out to the council. Does that work for everybody to do that special meeting on the same date as our next council meeting? Just if anybody doesn't think so, let the nays say so now, and the rest we will consider a yes. Any nays? Mr. Curry?
No, I think that's fine. I think that's how you guys should proceed.
Thank you.
So I think we're good.
So if I may, then we're going to have a work session on the 27th. I will do a whole lot less talking, I promise. No, that'll be your chance. What I will do, if it hasn't been shared with you already, I'll share it again and make sure that Octavia gives all of you kind of just a way for us to structure that conversation, again, with those 3 questions we highlighted at the end of our presentation today. You can scribble on them, take notes, whatever, and then we'll use that to just walk through your questions and comments. We can have an electronic copy of the document open, and really I don't propose to do any sort of presentation that night then, other than to sort of just kick us off and start talking.
Hopefully it'll be a very short meeting, and because if we have this time to look over it, I think it would be a very short meeting. I'm probably figuring less than an hour.
Justin.
Mm-hmm.
So we've got between now and 2 weeks, if there's any like specific questions as we're reading through as
Oh,
people
good.
are reading through the comprehensive, if they have specific questions that they want to ask you, should they reach out to either you or Miriam, or is there like a specific email where where council can just shoot you an email and kind of give you a heads up of, I've got a question about this, so that way when we get ready to do the work session, you'll already have an idea of some of those questions that need to be answered and can provide some additional information or clarification if needed. Like, is there a
That'd be great.
specific email?
That'd be great. And if you could send that to Miriam, that'd be fantastic. And we'll make sure that you all have Miriam's email address.
And also, Justin, I believe what you heard today was, in general, the council, in considering the time crunch, everything else we have going on that schedule, we probably should stick with that. And I know that there's some sort of time frame and sort of the public notice type thing, for the meeting. And so we should probably stick with that time frame to make sure we don't, that the council is able to get this stuff done before the end of the year.
That sounds great. So I think that that rests with Elliot, Jeff, and Octavia, and whoever puts that notice together. And then I think we'll be in good shape. Yep.
Okay.
I know we are over time. I appreciate your time. I appreciate the conversation. I appreciate the diligence with the schedule, especially, and thank you for understanding and your flexibility. I'm looking forward to our next work session in 2 weeks on the 27th. And yeah, don't hesitate to reach out to Miriam if you have any clarifying questions or just want to raise anything you want us to be prepared for. And Mayor and Council, I appreciate it. Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you
Just
all.
before we end, I just want to say thank you, Fran. You are the council representative for the Planning Commission. Thank you, Justin and Miriam, the council, and Apollo. Right now, I'm asking for a motion and a second to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
It been, Councilman Fry made the motion. Councilwoman Griffin seconded. Are you ready to vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you.
I didn't second, though. I'm sorry, Mary Jones. I didn't
That was
second. I
Tony.
think that was Miss Tony.
Okay, excuse me. I appreciate the correction. Councilwoman Tony Borough, she seconded the motion. So now can we vote? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. See you in the
Good night,
next 5
everyone.
minutes.